Hey everyone, happy Monday. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT network. Here at Center Ice, I'm Nick. Soon here is Brit. Which again, our poor internet just does not like her on the days when it matters most, man. I tell you what, it's just unfortunate. She'll be here in a second though, but we'll get here. We'll get started. Right. In fact, look at that. Didn't even have to wait. We got her.
I couldn't figure out what was going on where you were. I had entered the Broncos breakdown stream by myself.
Well, there you go. And speaking of everyone, so we're just gonna do an episode real quick here before the game. There is going to be another episode of The Neighborhood where they're going to watch the Avalanche and Blackhawks, so don't forget to tune into that. And if speaking of tuning in, don't forget to like and subscribe to the MHRT network so you can get notified when shows such as the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. If you want to follow us individually, we're going to put the ticker down here. You can follow us at the Clusterpuck Avs on Instagram and Twitter, and the Clusterpuck Podcast on Facebook. Okay, so we'll keep this nice, short, and sweet because we got a game right after us here, so we'll try to keep it under an hour. But what a week! Honestly,
I was like, wow, we played a lot of games, and then I was writing out next week's games, and I was like, wow, we're playing a lot of games between podcasts. A lot of hockey.
Yeah,
interesting.
And that's the problem is they're cramming us into just as many games in the last 3-4 weeks as possible, and that's just kind of how it is. But right now you've got to be happy with the last week you played. You swept the 4-game away series, which is great.
They said that was the first time since like 2007 that they won a 4-game road series, all of them.
Something like that, which is crazy to think, but honestly, it's
but how often do you have a 4-game road series too? So I mean,
not a ton. I know. Well, it was the beginning of this season. Even was it the Coyotes that had like a 14-game road series
they
or
were
something like that?
Arena ready. Well, and then like the Islanders had to do that 2 years ago, the season after COVID, where they had to go like 20-something games. And then never recovered.
Because UBS Arena wasn't ready yet. That's right. And it didn't do them any favors, to be completely honest.
They never recovered. And honestly, it was, 20 games of the season you should be really rolling by then. And after having gone did they go to the East Conference Finals? They didn't go to the.
They went to the finals. Let's see. So they went to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years in a row. And then I want to say it was last season. I think it was last season where they had the 20 games away, and that just killed them. Like their whole season just went kaboosh. It just wasn't fair, that kind of stuff. But 4-game road trip you'd think is totally fine. We were hoping to win all 4 of them. We did get all 4 of them. So we'll break down all those here real quick, and then we'll get into the week to follow, and that'll be it basically. So. We started out, let's see, Montreal. God, that feels like forever ago. I felt like that was like 3 weeks ago. But I guess not.
3 games and 35 days
ago. Around the league in 80 days. So we win this game 8-4. Although the way we were playing, you would have thought we would have won this game 15-0. They were playing so good. It was so weird because like we were just the game we just killed them right out of the gate. That first period we just rocked them 4 and they squeaked in the last one in the last minute or so. So 4-1 was the end of 1, and it just seems like the Avalanche, they had control the entire
whole game.
I mean,
100% on power play. We were 3-3. We Lucky went out there and put on a clinic, and then we talked about how he's always tip in stuff, and he's doing that garbage work, and he tipped one off his finger and broke it after a very emotionally exciting beginning of the game with his tribute. They cheered for him when he scored his first goal. They cheered for him. They cheered during his goal. And I said on Twitter, it's always so endearing to see past teams of players cheer so passionately, because a lot of our guys who have gone on to be our guys, like, and become basically Avs for life, they're not people that anybody's ever wanted to let go. We get so many like heart guys, like heart and soul grit guys that are under the radar to a lot of people, because a lot of the league would not have known Lehkonen until maybe other than that clinching goal with the Canadians. But other than that, he was very under the radar. And now he's obviously more of a household name, but Montreal always knew him and they've always loved him. And these guys that we take, and they're hard for people to part with. And you could tell that they loved him. But like I said on Twitter, we love him more. So
that's exactly right. He loved us more too, because he was a free agent last season, and instead of going back to Montreal, he stayed here in Denver. I mean, it helps when you win a Stanley Cup, that's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it really wasn't that notable of a game. On the numbers on paper, it looks like you let in 4 goals on 19 shots, but it really just fluky and weird and wonky. But we dominated essentially the whole entire game. Was this the game that Byram had that beautiful goal, or was that the?
Yes, so he's gliding across Allen, and he just back wheels it and flips it past him after. It was just amazing,
beautiful. But yeah, I mean, it was time to see our top guys showed up, our bottom guys showed up, everybody contributed. We've got assists and goals from everywhere, all the way from Matt.
Yeah, I think you and I are the only ones that didn't get points in that game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was a really obviously Montreal isn't a hard opponent, but it was a reassuring game to see just such a well-rounded everything. Other than, as of course, we lost on the face-offs, but that's just what we do,
What's surprising? Nothing.
Yeah.
The only downside I saw from this game was honestly the refereeing that made Georgiev look bad. Because the score, like I said,
the reffing is
8-4, but 2 of those goals that I can recall should not have even been counted, period.
Yeah. And if we would have lost, then it would have been.
I think you tweeted about this, was like, there was a blatant, it was Evan Rodriguez, and it was a turnover right in front of their own net, and they're going the other way. Rodriguez is curling back to head his way back onto defense, and I can't remember who it is, but the guy just basically right hooks him in his face, right in front of the referee.
Anderson, maybe. He's on the ice down and out. They go score freaking goal. Well,
it's a direct result of not having enough people there.
Yeah,
it was just,
but
and it seemed like
later on as far as bad refing.
That's
calls,
true.
So.
That's exactly right. But just
I don't know.
the refs, they did, because the referees just had the mentality as the game went on, they kind of just let stuff go, right? Like they called plenty of penalties, sure, because there was plenty of fighting, because the refs didn't stop anything. Like toward the very end of that game, the refs just kind of had the, have at it, boys. We don't care. We want to get out of here. Game's basically done. It's in hand. The Avalanche have it. Just get us out of here. So they just let people play, and it was just really bad refereeing.
Yeah, that's I don't know. They're going to and I haven't heard anything constructive coming out of the GM meeting, which is not like they can change anything specific in the GM meeting when it comes to reffing, but something's got to change soon. They're discussing expanding play reviews, like camera reviews for offsides that they're looking at expanding, which I'm like, less reviews. Just
what was it?
Do it as a human, make the call and be done. Is it goalie interference stuff, or is it offsides?
What was it? I thought it was like fighting, like initiation or something like that. It was something where it's like kept the players a bit safer, but now it's bugging me, because I remember exactly the conversation.
Have to deal with the reffing, because it's taking over so many discussions. It's coming out as a hot topic in so many games, and it's like we can't even talk about hockey because these refs are making themselves the center of attention, and they seem so stubborn lately in that they'll double down when they're doing something wrong. It's like they double down and continue to kind of push that because they don't want to have appeared wrong before. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, the Montreal game, it was good. If we had lost, I definitely would have been more pissed off about some of those, but we won, so it's pretty whatever. They sent Lecky home. I'm pretty sure Lecky was on a plane home to get surgery before.
He was already in Denver by the time that game was up, man.
So they must have known.
And it's got to be that's like true MVP. If you can tally 4 points, 2 goals, and 2 assists, I think is what he had, and still only played 10 minutes. That's pretty impressive. Like,
You know, if it was at all
he has my
possible,
vote.
he would have finished the game for that hat trick, even with a broken finger.
Oh,
So
he
they must.
absolutely would have got it. I know he would have
Well,
too.
yeah, and
Just,
I guess his is a
but
finger and not the thumb. And I think they said it's on his top hand, so it sounds like that should be a whatever combination it was. It should be a good one to have, like a quick healing, not as strenuous
yeah,
with stiff movement. So hopefully get
yeah.
that done
But
quick. But
they said the timeline was 4 to 6 weeks, but you know, we're pretty hopeful it's the 4 portion of the 4.
yeah,
But
and I think that's one that come playoffs you're willing to push a little bit more. You know, Roger was what,
exactly.
10?
Yeah.
And that was a thumb. So I don't know.
And speaking of injuries, real quick, we'll just touch up on this. Kale in the last game said he tweaked something. He's going to sit this one out. They said they're not concerned about it, just a rest day.
Yeah,
So
and they said they just don't want to. But
let's
it's
hope
kind of
that's
annoying.
exactly what it is. At this point, when they say it's just a rest day, it turns into like a rest month, you know?
Yeah, and that's
So
what it's really hard to trust them. Bednar last night said nothing was wrong. He's all
yeah,
good.
so it's hard to say that's exactly what's going to happen, but we have to relay it exactly how we got it. So a rest day is what we're going to call it. So okay, so into the next game. This one was a huge mark game, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because
It
the
was
last
very
time you were there, you got
going in.
absolutely embarrassed, and you win this game 2-1 in a shootout. And I must say, everyone in that game was a goaltender. This was a defenseman's paradise.
It was
Because the entire game, it was just, I think shots were like 29 to 18 in favor of the Avs. So it's kind of a typical game for the Avs, but they really bore down defensively. And again, it was excellent to pick up that extra point, especially knowing who it's against, what it means for your organization, that kind of stuff. So
it
just
felt
honestly,
very playoff.
Exactly. It felt like a hard playoff game, you know, not high scoring, even though we thought kind of it might have been. But Toronto was coming into that game struggling. I think they had just lost to Buffalo the game before. So you took advantage of a great time. You know, the only thing was that Ilya Samsonov was on top of his game. That was the only thing. And if it wasn't for an accidental bounce, it would have been really, really difficult to get one past him.
Yeah, because I mean, he was looking to push that puck through to Nuke, which if it had gotten to Nuke, I think it definitely would have gone in. But
it probably would have, yeah.
We're due a little bit of puck luck. You know, it's hard sometimes to
overdue.
You feel a little bit guilty, but it's like when you think of all the times that we've not been on the right side of puck luck for full games and stretches of games, this is very due. So I don't feel that guilty.
Yeah.
And then you get to the shootout, and if you can't have, who did they put out there for the shootout? Riley, Marner, and Matthews. Like,
I think I have it pulled up right here. So Nylander, Matthews, and Marner.
Nylander, yes, and it's
not a one of them made it.
What's it, Georgie? Was it he poke checked Marner, which like as a goalie is
what a beautiful shot! It was because it was right after McKinnon pulled that little move over the pads. It felt like the Rangers game all over again, where it's like this really boosted his confidence.
Yes,
definitely.
And the opposite, you know, I think that really the only notable person, Rodriguez just had a bad game. It was like, okay, maybe you don't belong up in the top. It was a really bad game. So it was kind of frustrating too. Did he get out on the shootout too? Was it his that he totally mucked it? They put him out first on the shootout, didn't they?
He did, but if he had actually kept it, it would have gone in.
Yeah, he was definitely
because he had Samsonov beat.
Yeah,
but he just kind of muffed it, which is too bad because those moves that he make are great.
Yeah, well, we kept them to. I mean, the score is 1-1, but like it was a very good game, and I know that a lot of people they want to see goals, and it's just like nothing else matters if you're not seeing goals. But it was a very good game. I think we held them to 3 shots in the first. I mean, it was such a tight game. Just very few egregious mistakes on both sides. It was a very good game. And then when you think that's pretty much their dudes. Other than O'Reilly, like that's the crew. Samsonov is their guy. That's the line. That's who they're taking. And it's like we still have Landeskog and Lucky hanging in the rafters for us. And it's like you just think about, and Landeskog, he's that game breaker in these kind of games where he's pissing off goalies, grinding and riding and putting in that extra. Yeah, and I mean and same with Lucky. Lucky has basically been one of our replacements for Gabe as far as those tips and stuff go. So it was very, very reassuring. I am getting sick of saying we're back. So I'm trying to temper my excitement. But this has been and I said last week, I said next week is going to give us, it's going to be, the determining, are we us again or not? And it's like, it literally makes my heart flutter that we're finally doing it. We strung it together. And I feel like, once we get those two back, I don't know, which Gabe was a non-contact, was he at actual practice?
He was with the team. Yep.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't get excited. Don't get excited.
I know. When I first tried it, I thought it said full contact, and I was like, oh my God. And then I realized
I know he just went from taking simple strides, and he's like, yeah, knee feels good. Put me in a full contact.
Yeah.
That would be very Gabe Landeskog-esque if that were to have happened. I bet you he did petition for that. Oh yeah.
And that, especially when we were struggling, he's probably aching to get back out there. And if we can come back and look like we have a chance again, it's going to be such a good motivator for him, to come out and be the determining factor, like that big difference maker, which he is. So yeah, I'm so excited. But yeah, I mean, this game was everything you could ask for him, everything you could ask out of the goalies, the top six, bottom six. It's just really nice, because I was really worried that we may get beat 7-1, because we've done it before. 6-2 was the New Year's game, right?
Well, that's kind of what you were expecting, was something kind of high flying offense, but instead it was just lockdown defense, which again, it makes for good hockey, because as far as your technique is going, it's really sound. Like you don't have as many complaints as far as transitioning from your defensive to offensive zone or vice versa. I mean, zone transitions in this game were phenomenal.
We won the face-off, but it was 55-45. So maybe that's the
there
difference.
You go. That right there is the key. But either way, it's a great second point we picked up. You're feeling great. You now have a 3-game win streak, winning now. Let's see, was it 4 out of the last 5 at that point? Mm-hmm. So you're like in a good spot going into the Ottawa game the very next day, a back-to-back. We're not strangers to those. So you'd think we were performing great, and again, no real questions in the Ottawa game other than when does Jonas Johansson get his Save of the Year award?
I don't know.
That's the only question I have.
I like that.
My gosh.
You can't really understand like how big of a stretch it was until you watch it from like the top down, and you're like, oh, wow.
Holy
but
crap.
that game was just, after we won Toronto, it was like, you know what, honestly, tomorrow, like, it's whatever. Just do, it's, if we lose, if we put everything we had into Toronto to win and we go out and lose to Ottawa, it doesn't matter. And Ottawa is such a toss-up. Ottawa could go out and beat Boston one day and then lose to Arizona the next, and then go out and beat. They're just this bizarre. And so then we had this tight, high-flying game yesterday, and then or against Toronto the day before, and then we get out to Ottawa, and it's like just freaking clown circus. I felt like this whole thing from top to bottom.
It was
just So 5-4. So you've got 9 goals. What did we score? First 2 goals in the first 5 minutes. So you're like, hell yeah, we're here to beat you up.
We're done. Game over.
And particularly, I'm sure we can get right to the game-winning goal. Tell us about that game-winning goal.
Well, there's the Lars Eller goal. Is that the one you're talking about?
Ended up being
so this is a mirror image on the opposite of the refereeing in Montreal. Mm-hmm. The refereeing in Montreal really screwed over the Avalanche. Well, the refereeing in the Ottawa game really screwed over the Senators. Yes. And if you want my opinion, it should have been icing. It should have been a dead puck.
Well, and so he was calling off icing, which like whatever. So
you're fine.
The icing is totally irrelevant. The goalie touches it. So the goalie is touching it. So the icing is irrelevant at that point, and the goalie covers it. So everything prior to that is irrelevant. The icing is irrelevant. I don't know what he's thinking. The goalie is covering the puck. And it was just kind of crossing my mind while I was doing my hair earlier. People talking about playing it till the whistle blows. And you got to wonder, like, how loud are those rinks that honestly they may trust the whistle enough on those things that they might not even hear the whistle sometimes down there. And I don't know.
It made you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that's what play till the whistle, but that is literally the most standard protocol. Goalie covers the puck. The ref clearly can't see it. He should be having his ass down there where he can see the puck.
So I watched a replay. Sorry to cut you off, but I watched a replay and I'm watching the referee the entire time saying, okay, how in the world can he still see this?
He can't.
Right?
No.
Because he's on, let's see, if I'm the goalie, I'm on my right side of my post.
So he's got his glove over it. He's got his
glove, or at least he's laying over it or something like that.
He's where it's where or his blocker down, paddle down with his leg pads behind it. So how he was had somebody tried to knock it in if it was going to go.
Exactly. But so any referee ever would have blown that puck dead. Because from the referee standpoint, there's no way he could have seen that loose unless he saw obviously something that we can't. But I looked at that replay 1,000 times. You know,
NHL, these goalies will, if it's a near icing and the goalies stop it and go down, they'll generally play it if there's not pressure. But you've got Logan O'Connor, the most unpredictable, fastest little pest of an asshole sitting right in front of you. And some refs will tell you, play it. Like they won't let you cover it, but you have the right to cover it if there's an Avs player. And I don't know what the exact rule is for the NHL is, but if there's an Avs player in your zone, you should have the right to cover an icing and not have to play it and have that pressure, especially if there's some like intention, because if you want the face-off in front of you, that should be there at the goalie's discretion.
Because of an opposing player in the area.
He would play it, but clearly he's not playing it. He's doubled down with his paddle in front of his leg pads. He's got his blocker down. And he's got his glove in front of it. So he's got every bit of evidence to show that he's protecting this puck. And O'Connor's in there quickly. So it's not like it was totally egregious.
And because it was him and... was it Stützle, Batherson, or something like that? That they are standing,
chilling,
as if they blew the whistle. And
it's like they almost had a little consensus.
Oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that
they realized the whistle never blew, and Eller just was like, okay, fine, and dinks it in, and sure enough,
Eller hadn't hurried in. He leisurely skated in, and then you can see him go, wait, what? And then he's like, okay, whack. And then then they challenge it for goalie interference. And there's no goalie interference, but their coach is like, I'm going to make you guys watch this shit again. I know it's not goalie interference, but you need to watch how stupid you look here. And then my favorite thing, and if I had been a Montreal fan that night, oh man, I would have been mad. But the rest of the night, every single icing, they cheered so hard every time they're up on an icing. So they're petty, and I like it a lot because I would have been pissed if I was Montreal.
Well, because the new rule with the icing, at least, and let us clarify, we're not mad about the calls. Okay, it became an Avalanche goal. We're not mad. We're not going to complain. But we have to be honest.
Our way, but
exactly. It finally some bizarre call comes our way. But the weird part about this, because I think it's this season they implemented the challenge rule when there's an icing. They'll waive it off if there's even a chance that they can have it be called the opposite direction or something like that, right? Yep. Instead of just first guy to the line wins type stuff. It's challengeable.
At the refs discretion.
Yep. So the way I saw it, it probably wasn't much of a challenge, but the way the ref did. So, but again,
it was so irrelevant once the puck.
But it became irrelevant. Yep, I didn't even think about that. So you're totally correct. It's the covering rule that we're really concerned about. But in either sense, Eller gets his first goal as an Avalanche, so we're very happy to see that.
One for the books.
Exactly. And then the rest of the game, it just became it pissed off the Senators.
It was so dumb.
To the point where they're just like, "Okay,
after that, we're also dumb." It's like they just had to make
more. They score 2 in the third period, and they're down 1 point with about
Mhm.
7 minutes left, thereabouts, and they get to a point where it was originally a 5-on-3, then it became a 3-on-4, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I think at the time of expiration, it was a 4-on-3 for the Senators,
Yes. Yep.
and that's when a one Jonas Johansson decided to break out the highlight reel and give us the save of all saves.
Balls
And
out. Yeah.
if you haven't seen that, and we briefly talked about it, that save is not easy to do,
No, it
especially
may
when
go down as save of the year for the league in general.
I
It may
really
be
think it
highlight.
should.
Yeah.
I've watched that so many times, and so Johansson, he's coming across to his left to block a shot from, I think it was Giroux or something like that, and
Yes.
he
So he
just leaves
slid
a
blocker side.
massive rebound, but he slipped. That's exactly what I wanted to point out. He slipped, so he's beyond his post.
Yes, he definitely
So
he overslid past, but
he
you're dedicated
overslid.
to that. There's like 5 seconds left, so you fully dedicate yourself to that shot
You
in front of you.
and that's just it. It was Stutzla, I want to say, who had just a net to himself.
Wide open.
He had the entire 6x4 net to just place it wherever his heart desired.
Yeah, the real travesty is that he shot it right there.
He shot it straight to a Superman complete split first base, like
Right off
slide.
the top of the toe, like on the boot of the leg pad.
It was like if he put that top shelf or any farther to his
Mhm.
left, it's a tie game and we're going to overtime.
Well, and then it's like nobody knew where it was under him, and the refs blew the whistle, and he does this like thing where he's like laying on his side with one leg
Yeah.
like over his leg, sprawled out like a supermodel, and everybody's all pissed because the ref blew the whistle, and it's like none of you can see the puck; it's under the man's body somewhere. Like
Yeah,
just
because as he was blowing the whistle, it eked out and they kind of caber tossed it, but it was
well, and so
I
then
just wow.
our other positive from the game, you got me. He's gonna break 50, not if, but when.
Oh
He's
yeah, it's a
next level. It's so nice to see him doing it because he's been on the cusp for way too long, and we've been paying him like he should have crossed that cusp already. But then the other thing that I was going to talk to you about, we didn't talk about, like, and I feel like nobody is talking about this. So Kachuk, we just like put people in headlocks like with our legs and then like glide our he very intentionally. And I hope everyone has seen it because if you haven't, you should go watch it because it's such a Chuck shit like kind of moment. He goes down with him with Bo and literally gets him like in kind of a headlock between his knees, and then does this thing where he moves his whole body so that he can conveniently swing his feet and skates, the things with the giant sharp razor blade on the bottom of them, right over Bo's head and face. I mean, it was genuinely probably the most dangerous thing of the game that you can name, like way worse than a fight. I mean, if that hit, it grosses me out so much when blades are that close to faces, but I feel like nobody's talking about that. He like literally, and it was so obvious too. It wasn't an accident at all, but am I overblowing it? I was pissed.
I honestly don't, because if you think about his other altercation he had with the bench, where I can't remember who it was going to the bench. I think it was Nichushkin or something like that. But Kachuk was not happy because all Nichushkin wanted to do was go to the bench, but it happened to be the path of Brady Kachuk. Kachuk took exception, and as Nichushkin's getting onto the bench, he is just laying on him, just checking him and punching him and all that stuff. Well, Nathan McKinnon takes exception to that and is trying to hold him. And I'm like, I'd do the same thing. I'd pin him down and just start just paddling his you know what.
Yeah,
It's that type of memory that you don't need. His emotions, and that's why Matthew Kachuk is my favorite of the two. Even though he's no gem himself, he's still much better than Brady, is because Brady can't control his emotions when it becomes a high stakes game. If it's pedestrian, sure, there's nothing to worry about. But when it boils over, it boils over. So I know I'm in total agreement with you, though. It's
really
way too dangerous. I wasn't happy about it either. But
it just wasn't really talked about much beyond that. And I just since Evander Kane's like wrist thing, even when I'm like coaching and playing and stuff, I'm so much more weirded out by like blades and open skin. And like there's even amongst like the rattiest, jerkiest players in the NHL, there's just a certain level of respect that you should always offer when you have your skates by somebody's face and head, especially when we all know that he's Mr. Conky. Like we all know that Bo's head is sacred. And I'm not asking you to like go easy on him, but maybe don't go out of your way to like try to put him in a headlock with your legs. Like it was a weird, but he's just a douche. But hold on, I got to do like a timeout and talk about it because we barely talked about it. So speaking of jerks, the Binnington flurry, like I gotta bring it up super fast because I can't stop talking about it. And okay, but did you watch the flurry hot mic where he's like,
yes, that was so good. He was so like calm about it. He's like, come on, let's go. And he's as the ref's holding him back, he's like, no. Please, it'll be good.
Well, what's my comment? And of course he's just smiling. He's got the most like.
And he's like, let me put my helmet on. I can't have my hair like this.
And it's so funny too because you see him and he's a goalie and he's like chucking gloves and blockers. But did you see the delicacy in which he
just gently sets his helmet
down and
his helmet on the ice before trying to challenge Binnington? Okay, so we'll back up. For those of you who have not seen. This was during the Wild. This is nowhere close to Avalanche related, right?
No.
This is between the Wild and the Blues. It was a game that it was just on, so I was just watching it at the time.
Yeah.
It got to a point where Minnesota scores and he trips over Binnington as he's on his way to celebrate with his teammates. And Binnington thinks it's on purpose because he wasn't watching.
Binnington's got his leg out of the crease. He's not in the crease. The guy literally like lifts it and catches the toe of
it. And he just kind of like snags it and trips over it accidentally. And he was thinking, oh, whatever. Whoops, I accidentally tripped.
Right.
Binnington takes hard exception to this. And as they're celebrating, he blockers.
Yes.
Like with the blunt hard side, that little short piece just
so your blocker is just this like hard plastic layered piece, and then you've got a glove. So you've got a glove that is on it here that's attached to this piece. So when you punch, your glove moves forward a little bit under this blocker, and then you get the full force. I mean, you're literally just having like it is so dangerous. Like it's one of the most
steel plate attached to the top of you.
And you can get so much momentum and you can direct that so well, and it fits into a perfect crease between your helmet and a player's neck. That blocker is very, very dangerous. So that's why you got the suspension for that.
Yep. So he throws a punch, and I swear he lands all three guys in one blow, and then just chaos ensues. Marc-Andre Fleury from 200 feet away sees this, and he says, "I'm done. I have had it with this. You know what?" And he sprints to the end of the ice where Binnington is, and like we said, delicately sets his helmet down, throws his gloves off, and tells Binnington, "Let's go. I've had enough." And he answers the bell. He's like, "Yeah, let's do this."
He's ready.
We could have had, if it were not for these stupid referees,
the ref is like
we could have had like the greatest hockey fight in NHL history if they just let it happen.
Do these refs not watch hockey? Like, do they not realize that people need to see Binnington get his ass kicked, or we all might literally explode? And honestly, letting him fight a goalie is the most fair situation that could be. Like,
absolutely
way more fair than fighting a player.
But of all goalies, it's the most beloved goalie in the NHL against the most hated. It was. You could not have scripted this any better.
And this is the refs broken up in a couple weeks. Reimer wanted to fight,
and the refs stopped it. Just
let it go.
I cannot tell you how many millions of fans would have joined had they watched that fight. Had that actually played out.
2 minutes for crossing the line, let them freaking fight. Like, if they're gonna take that penalty to cross the line, they deserve it. At least let them get a punch.
Take it the whole
goalie fight is good.
Yeah, you might as well. If you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You know,
injure each other. You can't swing when you're wearing goalie.
But it was beyond frustrating. My hands, like I watched this whole thing and I was like, oh, here we go. I'm taking my hat off because I'm so animated about it.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, this is I had no words. I was just joy just radiating from my face, and they stopped it. And by that point, I was like throwing my hat down, like, let them fight, like, come on.
I know, we've been waiting for so long for like
It
this
was
specific fight. Yes, Gibson.
yes.
Yes, Gibson. Okay, I don't know why I was thinking Reiner. And it's not like goalie fights aren't like these vicious, like gonna break bones and hands and stuff. Like it's so much more of just like an emotional thing. But yeah, I just oh my God, that linesman. I hope that he feels like such a dummy. Like,
well, because
he ruined it all.
He just stopped it, and it was just I don't know what to say other than we could have had. I honestly think this one would have been better than the Avalanche and Red Wings fight between Patrick Roy and Mike Vernon.
Well, and
like,
I think
I genuinely think so
because he had already committed he was already going to be kicked out. Binnington was, because of the blocker thing. So I wonder if I don't know exactly if there's like specific ref rules that they've already done something to have them ejected, if you just need to stop it as quickly as possible no matter what. But I feel like there could be exceptions made. People would
they should have
that 35 second fight.
Fleury's one of the nicest guy. It takes a lot to piss him off, and
so dorky, like even when he's talking, no fun, no. Like
no, he's like, no, it'll be good, people will love it.
Yeah. And
then after he's done, he's like, here, let me put my mask back on. I can't have my hair looking like this. It's like anyway, but that's
sorry, I had to. I'm gonna literally.
No, you're absolutely right. We had to sneak it in,
right? Because I think we had just finished watching the Ottawa game.
That was right after the Red Wings game. No. When was it? Was somewhere in that area between in Ottawa and Detroit.
Like literally as soon as ours was done, I think I flipped over to that Wild game and was watching it, and then it was just like, holy crap.
Oh, anyways.
So yeah,
that's just one of those moments in hockey history. Just the biggest what if. Because the biggest what if you'll ever ask yourself. Okay, we'll move into this last game here real fast. Not a lot to talk about, and then we'll get to the games ahead. Detroit, Colorado. You'd think it's the Brawl in Hockey Town Part 2. It was the mum's the word in Hockey Town. It really was. You know, the first period made it interesting. It was like 1-1, great. But then after that, it felt like the Avalanche had the whole game the rest of the way, and they did. It was 5-1 victory. You get out of there. You don't have as many shots as them, which was interesting. But Georgiev again just played absolutely solid, and Lars Eller had a shorthanded goal, which was probably the highlight of it all.
People are swallowing their bitter words from trade deadline, because he's really finding his place, and he's scored more goals now in his 2 goals than I think he scored all year with the Caps. And I mean, the Caps, they're not a good place to be. And I was just listening to another pod today, and I like this description of him is that Eller will play in the playoffs and he'll be decent, but he's going to be one of those guys that scores 1 goal that makes it worth every single penny and every dumb turnover. He's going to score one of those home goals. He's going to score one of those, just that clutch goal that doesn't matter what we paid him, doesn't matter what we gave up, that goal. Because what was that? I mean, he didn't do hardly anything.
Something like that. But now look at him. He's flourishing in San Jose. So all you need is the right team and make it work.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's just, whatever. Really bad face-off loss in that game. So we only won 37% of face-offs. So I don't know.
Yeah, 27 compared to 46.
Will be good in a couple years.
I think the Avalanche are at a point where they don't really care about face-offs anymore.
No,
they're just going to rely strictly on offensive power. But the Lars Eller goal, shorthanded one. If you haven't seen it, it's actually really impressive how he is able to get it back. It somehow lands into Chushkin's lap. He dishes it off to Eller, and Eller nets it. But it was just, and I think you nailed the nail on the head. There is he's finding his own, and hopefully by the time this is all done and we're into the postseason, he's going to be one of that veteran presence type, kind of Cogliano type players, where his veteran presence alone has propelled him or Darren Helm even has propelled them to make these really key plays during key moments. And again, I'm really happy with that trade. So, all right, we'll go ahead and move into the. We got about 20 minutes here. You got 4 games, and one of them is a back-to-back doubleheader. So, well, I shouldn't say back-to-back, but it's a doubleheader, home then away in the same place.
Yes.
So tonight we have the Blackhawks, and that's a home game. I don't really know what much to say about this game. I still have some key points, but I really expect this to be a very one-sided game.
When you consider, especially the last time we played them, they had Taze and Kane, and I mean they're beyond all. There's nothing left. I mean, they've got Merzlikins, and we know that you can put a touchdown on Merzlikins, so do it.
That's right. So key to the game number 1 is if the mob finds out. So little play on Chicago mob lore there, but the one thing I do want to keep in mind is even though this game should be pretty well in hand, we lost to them.
Yeah,
once upon a time, and it was our lowest of lows. This game could be one of those where if you do lose this for some Lord knows why reason, it could send you into another world of hurt where you're in a losing streak again, and that's the last thing you want. So if the mob finds out they remember that they beat you and they can,
if we lose,
don't let it happen.
Maybe us ourselves. I could certainly see this being a game that we go out and just absolutely crap the bed. We will be out Makar. We'll have Bowen, Martin Power play 1, which is a nice time for him to kind of get out there and see what he can do on there, and we'll have McDermott in. So, but I just really, even if we go out there and we don't win in any extravagant fashion, they've got to be tired. It's been a long week, but I believe
the Blackhawks have Stalak, who I think his save percentage is like 90, almost 92.
Okay.
So I think he's almost dead even with wins and losses. Okay. I think. So again, it should be one of those. Just get to work. Score off and score early. Take them out of the game.
Yeah.
And that leads me into what's that?
Have you seen who's starting for us? I was just looking now to see.
Georgiev is probable. Has Peter Baugh or Kyle Keefe said anything?
I don't know. That's what I was looking for. Sorry, I'm not.
Which is so funny because with like 15 minutes left, you'd think they'd have something to Georgiev. For Peter Baugh 7 minutes ago, Georgiev.
We got
and McDermott's back in.
Oh, also Eric Johnson was in a full contact uniform today, but it doesn't look. He's not playing.
Well, that means progress.
He's progress. It's so weird how everybody gets hurt so much that so for the beginning of the year, I just kept forgetting that Bo existed, that he was.
Yep.
Yeah, it's.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it's. It'll be nice to have him back too. Yep. I mean, as much as people want to rip on him, he's still a veteran for us, and but yeah, there's really just not much to say about the game tonight. It's.
Nope. And that's key to the game number 2. Is a good old-fashioned thumping. That's literally the name of it. Kind of like what you did against San Jose. Score off and score early, take them out of the game, and the rest is just coasting. That's
50 goals.
And it's to a point where you could do exactly that. So I'm
close to his 100 points and never
I think in this game you get a Bo Byram hat trick, a Nathan McKinnon hat trick, a Mark Mosier hat
95 points.
You get everything in this game. It's going to be and my hope is it's going to be who didn't get points today.
The scoring across the league has been so insane lately. I cannot even say how many times I will look at the scores. The beginning of the games is 10 shots from this team and 6 shots from this team, and the score is 6-4, halfway through the first. And it's what is going on? And Dallas put up 10 points the other day on Montreal.
Let's see. Buffalo won 9-5 or something like that. Not Buffalo, Florida. At the end of one, it was 7-4.
Yeah,
with Florida and Montreal, it was nuts.
The first period has not been nice to goalies. even good ones.
No.
Like, it's really weird. But
No.
yeah, it'd be nice to see Georgie maybe pick up some shutouts.
A shutout. Yep.
But yeah.
Key to the game number 3, the real Jack Johnson. And no, I'm not talking about the one that plays in the fantastic ukulele piece. I'm talking about the Jack Johnson that you and I know, the locker room sweetheart himself. I want this to be a night for him, because he's right now, he's just kind of that piece where it's like your fingers crossed he doesn't make a mistake. I want him to get on the board. I want him an assist, a goal, something to, against his former team that he played half a season with.
He hasn't. He hasn't scored since he scored on Chicago during opening night. Isn't that what it was?
Last season,
last
game
year.
1.
It's been a minute, but we're not paying him to score. So
that's exactly right. We're just making sure he's out there to not make mistakes.
Yeah. He just about had one. He had that breakaway the other night. I can't remember what game that was in, but once he gets on breakaways, he does well. So tonight could be his night. This if some bender's going to get a goal, it's probably going to be in the next 4 games. So.
I hope so. And then we'll make my wife happy here. Yes, the Rangers did have a 6-goal period. It was quite amazing.
It's easy to forget.
So, I know, right? But I have to end up getting in the New York state of mind. My wife and I were going to New York City here in less than a month. So
that's so exciting.
We're going to a Rangers game and a Devils game. This is for her graduation. So she's going to make all of her dreams come true. So anyways, next game here, Pittsburgh. Now this is one I personally circled. So you're hosting them. The first key to the game is you think we forgot. This is kind of more of a personal note for me, considering I didn't forget, because I was very mad about how that last one ended. Francouz had everything in the bag. Like, he had the shutout in hand, and then with like 2.5, 3 minutes left, they just a dumb shot rings off and they score. Then they win in overtime. I wasn't happy. So if I didn't forget, I'm really hoping the players didn't either, where they have a vendetta, not necessarily against the opposing team per se, but just how it ended, because they want to write.
What's weird is the Penguins, like the odds and the beatability are they're like the easiest team on this week's schedule. They have us beating them the easiest. I have no idea does anybody get what I'm trying to say?
I do.
They should be the easiest team on our schedule according to the odds for us to beat this week. Which, when you consider we're playing Chicago, Arizona, Anaheim, is like, I thought the Penguins were far more in it, but I haven't looked at their roster.
Well, at the end of 2, I'll tell you this right now. Ottawa is currently playing Pittsburgh, and they're beating them 1-0 at the end of 2.
Ottawa's winning.
So Ottawa is winning. So if you take that into consideration, and if I have just a quick second to pull up Pittsburgh's schedule that they've had in the last handful of games, they have, let's see, they have lost 3 in a row into tonight. They might lose 4. So if there's a game that you really ought to kick them while they're down, it'd be this one.
Makes me sad. I think that they have the longest playoff, making the playoff run right now.
They do.
It's like 16 season, and the next is like 8.
I think it's once Crosby was drafted, and they haven't missed the playoffs since.
It's really
something like that.
It's like a really and this is like super dramatic, and I know that I'm dramatic, but like it is it's like a really hard thing for me to think about, that this could be a year that like the Caps and the Penguins very well could have not even made the playoffs, like let alone being like true contenders. And it's like all these things keep happening. That's like this era is ending, like the era that like shaped my whole hockey. It's so weird.
Well, all things must come to an end. So and as we look at the standings in the East real fast, Pittsburgh is only holding on to that second wild card spot by 1 point.
And are the Caps in a wild card spot at all?
No, they're out by 5. So it's totally possible that you do not see Ovechkin or Crosby.
We just need to do the Caps Penguins Cup, and we'll just let them play their own round for the sake of.
They really should, because it's a
continuing to watch
classic
them
game. It
play as
really
we always
is.
do. I know, especially when
It
Crosby
really
and
is.
Ovi, they're not slouches by any stretch of the imagination. They've just, you can only sell out for so long with two powerhouse. You know what I mean? Like they Penguins
Yeah.
have nothing in the reserve, from what I
Yeah.
understand. I don't
And
know. Makes me really sad.
Speaking of points, though, because every point matters for every team, my second key to the game is do not go to overtime.
Oh my
Win this
God.
game in regulation, please.
Can you tell like our whole division that? Like, stop going to overtime. There's 3 points to every single game in our division.
I know. It's so dumb. So if this game goes to overtime, whether we win or not, I'm just going to be ripping my hair out, because this is one of those where it's like you're still giving them opportunity, right?
Mhm.
Because obviously you only play the West up until the Stanley Cup Finals, but what if something happens and you end up meeting them in that final? Whereas if you beat them in regulation time just one more time, they could have been knocked out of the playoffs. There's a lot of stuff that it's like, oh, what if we had just done this? So that's my please don't win this game in regulation, win it in a good fashion. But I don't like the overtime against the Penguins thing, just because of what happened last time. I'm still rather butthurt about it, if you can't tell.
Yeah, well, and I don't know. I still am annoyed that the whole Cale Makar thing. So I'm curious to see if
exactly, and there's that writing too. Yeah,
I still just don't think it was clean. I'm a crybaby, but I just don't. So
no,
yeah,
I totally. I forgot about it until you brought it up. Now that's why I really don't want it to go to overtime. I want this game to be over before it begins. Yeah. So if that's the case, I really should have thought this through when I put my third key to the game.
I totally thought that's what the third key was.
My third key to the game is called Heads Up Higher.
That's what I thought it was referring to. So sorry.
Did you hear that, Britt? My third key to the game is called Heads Up Higher.
That's what I thought you were talking about, Cale.
Yeah, nope. I wasn't even thinking about that. So we're going to discard that third key to the game. The whole idea was to just don't let that first game get down on you. Keep your chin up. You know, it was supposed to be the whole go get them, you got this type situation. But now that you say that, we're going to just say there were only two keys to the game. The third one doesn't count. Okay, moving in to the last two games. It's I need to stop saying back-to-back. It's a doubleheader, home then away, against the Coyotes. So we're going to have the same keys to the game for both games, as they will probably both have to be incorporated for both games. First one, rack them up. This is one, again, I've said this 1,000 times, and I'll continue to do so. That game against San Jose should be a starting point where your feet leave off the ground, is to just score off and score early and take them out of the game, because the rest doesn't. It becomes less stressful for you, less stressful for me, just to score as many goals as possible. And then if the game is well out of hand, then you can just kind of play keep away, technical hockey, whatever it is. No, I'm not saying take your foot off the gas by any means, but just begin to just settle into the game. Let the rest of it come to you.
So
honestly, that's what they need.
My only thing with these games that may is Frankie still alive? Have we established? Does it sound like he's done for the season?
Yeah, you know, I wish I knew. They told me they told us 3 weeks, and it's been 2 months. You know, I don't know.
So I am curious with these two Coyotes games. Do we use this to, if we hopefully we are 2 points back from Dallas after, if we essentially hopefully at this point we have solidified maybe first in the division. They might dork around with stuff a little bit. I'd be curious to see if we maybe try to hit on in another game, maybe get Kincaid, because if Frankie is out for the entirety of the playoffs, that's pretty scary. I mean, when you consider he played the whole Western Conference Finals. Yeah. I mean, that's a hard pill to swallow. So I'm curious if we do some
begin to give Georgiev some rest.
Give him some rest. Let Annunen play, and
because I was about to say Annunen has my thumb of approval. Johansson has my thumb of approval. And obviously against these games where it's like, yeah, we can let Georgiev have a night off, because offensively, as long as you're offensively high,
we
then
should be able to
I think you're
outscore
totally
any
fine.
problem that.
Exactly. You should be able to outscore your problems. Exactly.
And I have a lot of faith in JoJo, but it might just be good considering the vast differences in these teams.
Yeah.
From last year.
And that's just it. This is my second key to the game, is called they don't need much. Now and that's just it. The Coyotes, they're not really high as far as shots taken, but when they do, they make it count. Like
especially the one in
nuts.
Mullet it's like jarring for these guys to play in this college arena.
It's insane.
Even like the best teams are just, there's something about it and it just throws them off. So I was gonna look and I forgot to see what Arizona's at home percentage for winning versus being away, because
that's a good question.
It seems to be different, and people's games are messed up. I don't know. It's just it's a weird vibe for other teams to come into. So,
and keep in mind, I believe, I can't remember if they're playing tonight, but they are one game behind being tied with Vancouver and St. Louis. So,
my God.
So people are like, yeah, they're not very good. They're only a few games below 500. Like,
they
even though
pretty much royally screwed the Bedard.
Yeah.
Like, and it's so funny because now like Anaheim is in it and they weren't trying to be in it at the beginning of the year.
Like, neither was San Jose. And so San Jose has my full support for the Bedard race. But anyways, again, they make the most of their opportunities. Speaking of the Coyotes, so you have to make sure you are on your A game any shot they take, because you never know.
It's a great testament to being able to maintain your game regardless of who you're playing, because the Coyotes we need to not play down to their level, because then in their brief flashing moments of greatness, they take over and then they end up beating us, because they have 2-3 minute spans where they take over and we play down to their level for the rest. So it's this is one of those tenured, signs of a mature team, is being able to commit to playing your top game the entirety of the game, regardless of the opposites.
Exactly. And my wife mentioned that she sent me this in a tweet. So Clayton Keller has more points than Austin Matthews, and I will continue the list real fast. Austin Matthews, Kirill Kaprizov, Johnny Gaudreau, Steven Stamkos, Alex Ovechkin, Dylan Larkin, Kyle Connor, Brady Tkachuk, Brad Marchand, and Sebastian Aho.
That's insane.
That's nuts. So I think, like I said,
just like free ball out there playing with no expectations.
They're no peon team like everyone is led to believe for the last however many years. If they actually get out of their rebuild mode, they can be something of a really good team.
Draft half of the entire draft class next year.
After they stop spending their money on players they no longer have, or never did have, I should say. And another part that makes them good, and this is my last key to the game, and then we'll sign off: a tandem from the desert. Somewhere, somehow, Karel Vejmelka had been, we knew had been good. But then all of a sudden, his tandem buddy, why am I forgetting the name?
I don't know. Neither one of them. I can never remember what their names are. I've said so many versions of them.
He was on Nashville. Yes, he was on Nashville last year. Why am I all of a sudden Connor Ingram? They are all of a sudden. They are all of a sudden one of the most elite goalie tandems you can have.
They'll put Ingram in for both, because he just kicks our freaking asses every time we see him. That goalie tandem looks so good, and it's amazing how none of them were dealt during the trade dedeadline. That's what I don't understand. If you want to kill your team, even though your guys are trying hard,
kill the team.
Bring in go get Jack Campbell at this point. Like, I don't understand. I'm surprised to hear that more people weren't poaching. You'd think Edmonton would have been like, please, for the love of God, take this Jack Campbell contract and we'll take your goalie. And you would have thought, because it's the whole thing about the Oilers and Toronto. They're both good, but my God, their goalie situations are suspect, especially Edmonton. They just get Jack Campbell out of Canada. They just destroy goalies' brains. Holy crap. And Campbell he's a sensitive guy, just
that's exactly right.
Maybe some sunshine and some golfing would do him some good. But I
That's
just
right.
don't know why they didn't deal him, because man, Vamelka, I think he's gonna be cash money. I think he's really
and that's just it. Is if they're on their A game, it's shutdown defense what they play. So
Oh
you
my
have
gosh,
to
Allie,
either you have to make them play frustrated, make them play out of their comfort zone, that kind of stuff.
Keller has crybaby eyes, and just like Eric Johnson, always looks like this on the bench. Eric Johnson's always like, and it's like, don't cry, even like when nothing is wrong. Keller's got those crybaby eyes too, where it's like, oh my god, who is mean to him? But yeah, he's. I think I always, every time I look at EJ, I'm like, he's like one of the happiest, most flamboyant guys on the team, but somehow he always looks so sad, especially when. In the beginning of the career, when he was insecure, remember how he used to always do his interviews like this? And,
his little
and
bite.
now he's like flipping his retainer out, and it's got his teeth hanging out of his mouth. Like, he used to try to hide that so much, and it's so funny.
It's crazy
now, but yeah, he's a sad boy.
And like I said, the Coyotes team is fun to watch, but in this case, it's points that are for the Avalanche for the taking. So don't mess it up against them, because you've already got spanked by them before. So
right, and that's I don't want to get cocky, but also I just want to push Mac over that 100 points. So we'd never have to have a conversation about when is Mac going to hit 100 points again, because he is kicking butt right now, even after having like 11 less games than most everyone in the top 5. He's just McKinnon he's just next level, and I just always say that, but he always is. It's like incredible. I don't know. It's crazy.
Nope, you're absolutely right. So, okay, well, that'll wrap it up then. We got a game to get to. So thank you once again, everyone, for watching the show. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you can get notified when shows such as the Clusterfuck Podcast go live. You can follow the MHRT network so you can get notified for this show, other shows on the network. We love the guys around the network. They're awesome people. Go ahead and check them out. Like and subscribe the Clusterfuck Podcast on Facebook, Clusterfuck Avs on Instagram and Twitter. I think that's about it. So, Britt, if we don't have anything else, we'll go ahead and sign off.
Are you going on the neighborhood watch with them?
I might, but I'm also hungry. So I haven't eaten all day, so I'll have to see. But okay, that'll wrap it up, everyone. So let's go grab a couple points tonight. And as always, go Avs, go.
See you guys. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here,
because this party is over.